I'm Hugh Hewitt, joined by Ben Domenech. He's the editor-at-large at The Spectator. He's a Fox News contributor, and he's my go-to guy for our Week in the Review. Good morning, Ben. How are you?
I'm doing great, Hugh, and we have plenty to review this week. What a crazy week in terms of the amount of news.
I want to start with the one I think is actually most ominous, which is Putin and Kim together in Moscow, and then Putin announcing yesterday he's going back and making a return visit to North Korea. What do you make of this as the axis of evil centered in Beijing with outposts in Tehran, Moscow, and Pyongyang? What do you make of this, Ben?
Well, I think that he's obviously trying to shore things up after, a couple of difficult developments in terms of his situation in Ukraine. Keep in mind that we're also speaking in the context of a Xi regime that, has been, in sort of a very questionable footing on the international scale. You saw, obviously, their absence at the G20, but then, there's also an interesting story today. I don't know if you've touched on it yet about this Chinese defense minister.
Li Shangfu, missing. Yes.
And one of the things that I think, you can take away from this is that, one thing that Putin and Xi have in common is sort of difficulty in the ranks. People who, are kind of emerging internally as critics during periods of difficulty and after their decisions that have put, a lot at risk in both regimes. On the Xi front, it's more economic, but on the Putin front, it's both economic and obviously militarily as well. And I think that this coming together is kind of an opportunity for them, or what they hope to be an opportunity to kind of reset and say, all right, what does the next period of time here look like, and how can we get things in a better position, vis-a-vis Ukraine and China's tacit support for it. And real support for it via other regimes. So this is, look, I think it's concerning. I think it's more concerning that we have a Democrat regime in Joe Biden's White House that is just so naive. I mean, I have to catch myself to say a word that would not allow it on the radio, but it's one of these things where, Jake Sullivan coming out and talking the way that he did about both the Iranian decision, about the attitude towards North Korea and everything like that over the past couple of weeks has been just eye-opening about, we know these people don't know what they're doing, but they don't know what they're doing in a way that is so risky at this particular point. And frankly, I think that we need more of an emphasis. I hope that we get more of an emphasis in the coming weeks in this next Republican debate on foreign policy questions, because I don't think that this is a moment in which we want to be elevating people who don't know what they're doing on foreign policy and have kind of an attitude of, I can just come in and fix this. The people who've been in charge are idiots, and I'm just going to be better automatically. No, you actually have to have a coherent plan about how you're going to address the challenges that America faces around the world and that our allies face.
Now I want to play for you a clip of the president yesterday in Prince George County Community College, cut number 22 for Ben Domenech.
I taught at the University of Pennsylvania for 4 years, and I used to teach political theory.
Now, Ben, everybody knows that's a lie. And it was reported on Fox News. It was reported in the Daily Mail and the New York Post. And it's so often repeated and so often just understood it's a lie that nobody reports on it. Do you find it mildly concerning that nobody cares that the president doesn't seem to get the reality of what he did and didn't do?
The thing that really is starting to bother me here is it's one thing if Grandpa tells a fish story, about, that time that he met Frank Sinatra or something.
Yeah.
Like that. It's another thing when Grandpa seems to actually believe all of his fish stories. Does Joe Biden actually think that he was at ground zero the day after 9/11? It's not, because it's not in his book. It's not where he was. He was on Senate. He was in the Senate, and there was lots of things that were going on at the time. He wasn't there. And yet he said he was there. He didn't teach for 4 years. He didn't, have these kinds of interactions with different officials. And he hasn't even seen that John Wayne movie that doesn't exist, but that he has been citing for years.
Dog-faced pony soldiers. Yeah.
Dog-faced pony soldiers.
Doesn't exist. Not out there.
So here's the point. At some point, we're like, do we have to address the fact that with senility, there comes kind of this belief in all of these things that you've just repeated so long that you convinced yourself that they're real. And how does that affect his ability to govern us and also lead the world, the free world as commander in chief? And I think the answer to that is absolutely yes. It hurts our ability. It hurts our ability in so many ways, and that's why I think you saw the David Ignatius piece this week, and I think it's why you saw so many people, including Joe Scarborough, admit that for the first time publicly on air, that, hey, every conversation that I have about Joe Biden is about him being too old.
Ben, do you think he's going to be the nominee? I don't.
For the first time, Hugh, this week, I believe that he might step down. I think
he's not going to be. He's not going to do it. He's going to do it Johnson after he wins South Carolina. He's going to do it Johnson.
I think the likelihood of that has increased dramatically in the last several weeks. And if you had asked me this a month ago, in fact, you may have, I probably would have been on the other side of it.
Yeah, I don't think we did Candidate Casino. I put $90 on him getting out 2 weeks ago on Brett's show. Yeah. All right, I got a couple other things to do. Sure. Hunter Biden is going to go to jail. And not because he was a drug addict in possession of a gun, but because he lied on the form. The one thing we can't allow is people...
Well, I would got to disagree with you. I don't think he's going to see the inside of a jail cell, because I think part of this getting out is going to be Joe saying, I'm not going to let my only surviving son actually see that. I am going to.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not. Pardon? You mean pardon him?
Yeah.
Okay, that's possible, but I'll tell you what, that'll hurt the Democrats up and down the ticket, because there are a lot of people in jail on gun charges having with falsification of record. It's not a drug. There's a Bruin challenge brewing on this case about past drug users not being able to have guns, but that's only one count. And I want to know, Ben, where did the tax evasion charges go? Is he going to file them serially in a different jurisdiction like Jack Smith did with Donald Trump? Or are we ever going to see a Foreign Agents Registration Act, which is the most important issue?
Look, Hugh, I think that this is a smokescreen. I think that this is the easiest charge in the world to bring. They could have brought it at any time, and the reason that it's happening now and happening in the way that it is because it's disconnected from all of these other serious charges that all have to do with his relationship with the rest of his family and potentially with Joe. And I think that the fact that this is being brought, in this way, is something that, is going to actually be a tool for the Democrats. They can say, hey, law and order, we believe in the court system, and, nobody's above the law, and we apply that standard to the former president, we apply it to Hunter Biden. And also, by the way, this is targeting because he was an addict, and have some sympathy, and, all these other,
You can't lie on the forms. It's not about the addiction.
You can't.
You
It's
can't
a lie.
lie on the forms.
And I love how they say, oh, it's checking a box. Well, so is lying on your tax.
Every single SF-86 that every single federal employee has ever filed, you go to jail if you lie on the SF-86 or the 171.
And the Washington
UAW.
Fantastic report about it. Yeah. UAW, yeah.
I'm from Cartown. These are not, there are only 4 strikes, but they're at all 3 big automakers, and it may spread. Major deal, minor deal for Joe Biden?
I think it's a major deal, and I think that this sort of summer of labor unrest is driven by a lot of different things. But it's not like you can sort of establish an overall narrative. But when it comes down to it, it's about it's disputes about wage increases, it's disputes about cost of living adjustments, and it's driven in part by the fact that we're living during this inflationary era that Joe Biden has precipitated and only made worse through his massive government spending. And I think that, in terms of his approach, Joe Biden has always sort of depicted himself as being a friend, of labor, of the worker, and that kind of thing. And I think it's difficult for it. He's had calls with a number of the executives at these car makers and things like that, but he hasn't been able to move anything. And I think that the fallout from this could be pretty considerable when it comes to the political lessons that people learn. Is the Democratic Party still a pro-worker party, or are they the party of college-educated elites, of college-age kids, of single women? And that's pretty much it. It's not the kind of broad coalition that they pretended to represent over the past several years, but they've really been going in the direction of moving away from this. And I think that the opportunity is there again for these Republican candidates, I think, to say, look, we need to get inflation under control. We need to get these things back to the point where people can have confidence that they're a working family in America, that they're going to be able to take care of their kids and their future.
And buy a house. I mean, inflation, it's 25% more expensive to be an American than it was 2.5 years ago. It's astonishing to me that Democrats think that Bidenomics is working. Ben Domenech, follow him on Twitter, the site formerly known as Twitter, at B. Domenech, editor at large of The Spectator, Fox News contributor Ben Domenech. Thank you, Ben.